Welcome, latest Motley Fool Scoreboard. I'm Anand Chakavalu, and we've got longtime fools Matt Frankel and Lou Whiteman giving a 1 to 10 rating to a company that makes metal parts for the likes of Boeing and Airbus. It's a top 50 stock in the Moneyball database. It's Howmet Aerospace, ticker symbol HWM. Rate the strength of Howmet's business first, including factors like industry and competition. 10 is invincible, 1 is hopeless. Matt's at a 9, Lou, you're at an 8.
Yeah, an amazing thing for a parts maker. And yeah, as we said, mostly aerospace components, fasteners, mostly for airplane engines. That's all they're doing is making the nuts and bolts. But these are highly specialized components for particular engines. A lot of them are on patent. And Howmet has a great range to a bunch of different platforms. That gives them diversity. The origin story is this is a collection of businesses assembled by Alcoa. Alcoa probably overpaid. They didn't do a great job of integrating these businesses, but their loss has been shareholders' gains because Howmet on its own spun off from Alcoa, spun off from the drama. They've done a great job under their new management team, up 1,000% over 5 years. I don't think they can repeat that, and I will note this is a business that is subject to the health of the new and used plane market, so there is some commodity and cycle risk here, which brought me down a bit, but overall a solid business with patents and protections to make sure that they get that business going forward.
Yeah, I was at a 9, and I was at a 7 or an 8 until I uncovered that Howmet makes 90% of all, quote, structural and rotating components for aircraft engines. 90%. It has tremendous intellectual property. It owns the patents on pretty much everything it makes. And that includes for most aluminum alloys that have ever been used on an aircraft. It gives it a massive competitive advantage. So for the business, I'll give it a 9.
Management, a 10 is Warren Buffett, a 1 is Homer Simpson. Both of you have 7s, Lou.
Yeah, so look, there are a lot of aerospace companies that just don't work as investments, and mostly it's down to management. I mentioned before, this company was a bit of a basket case before CEO John Plant took over in 2019. He was already on the board. He had a great reputation over at TRW, did great work there, and he gets a lot of the credit for Howmet's success. The downside, and the reason I'm only at a 7 is Plant is 72 years old. Now, just this year, he signed a retention award of restricted stock units that don't vest until 2028. So I don't think he's on his way out anytime soon. But at some point, they are going to have to figure out what comes next. I'm not too worried. There's a good team there. There's a bench, but it does bring the score down a bit for me.
Yeah, I gave it a 7 also. I mean, he's done a fantastic job, and I looked into the succession issue a little bit more. Even if all the people internally who would be likely to be his successors, like the CFO, the COO, and things like that, are all like in their early 60s. There's not even a great natural succession plan within the business. So I'd like to hear more about that beyond just giving, the CEO some restricted stock units. That's one of my problems with Berkshire Hathaway, that Warren Buffett stayed so long that his successors are like 75 years old. So I agree that that's a concern going forward.
For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. Both of you have 7s, Lou.
Yeah, record-breaking performance in the most recent quarter in terms of revenue and earnings. Earnings are growing at more than twice the rate of revenue, which shows the benefits of scale and demand, so we like to see that. Company has also reduced its debt load by more than $2 billion since 2020 and expects about $1 billion in free cash flow this year, so a lot to like. As the debt has come down, Howmet is increasingly focused on returning cash to shareholders. The share count is down 7% in the last 5 years. They just boosted the dividend by 20%, though the yield is still kind of tiny. Downside here is they still do have $3.4 billion in debt on just $500 million in cash, so the balance sheet still does need some work. I think the low-hanging fruit is picked, so to speak, in terms of like finding value, so it's more incremental from here, but it's a very, very good incremental gain story from here.
Yeah, I mean, I said a 7 also. Like Lou pretty much covered it all, but not the strongest balance sheet I've ever seen, but a totally reasonable debt load for a company of its size and revenue and profitability. So I agree that the buyback's a great story. I see that ramping up and them being kind of opportunistic about that. So I said a 7 for financials.
Let's move on to valuation. Matt, how well will Howmet Aerospace's stock do over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10's a sure thing, 1's a lottery ticket.
I said 5 to 10% returns over the next 5 years, slightly underperforming the market. With a 7 safety score, and really it is a question of valuation for me. I agree that all their intellectual property and everything I mentioned makes this a safer than average investment, but at an all-time high, a forward PE of approaching 50, an unrealistic amount of future growth might be priced in at this point. I still expect positive returns, just not necessarily market beating over the next 5 years.
So Matt's right. The issue is definitely not the quality of business. It's the expectations that have been set and what they can do from here. I'm a little more bullish. I'm at 10 to 15%. I think it's a market beater just because the order books for Boeing and the demand, I think, is there for the next few years. But I don't know how long they can sustain this. For safety, I'm a 7. Aerospace is not disappearing, and Howmet is an important part of the supply chain. The question is growth from here, not sustainability. I think for the next 5, it's probably all right, but we'll see long term.
Let me clean up something Matt said a little earlier in this. He mentioned the age of Berkshire's succession folks. I think he was mostly talking about Ajit Jain, who's in his 70s.
Yes, Greg Abel's in his 60s.
Yeah, and Ted and Todd are in their 50s and 60s. But fair enough. Thanks to both Matt and to Lou. They've given Howmet Aerospace an overall score of 7.2 out of 10. Matt has no toppets. Lou would say TransDime, ticker symbol TDG. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is Rocket Lab. Till then, Fool on. Oh, yeah. How do I pronounce Howmet Aerospace? Is that my correct? Or?
I wouldn't say smace.
Yeah, I messed up on the space, which was the easy part. Yes.